What's going on, Fight Night fans and D-Gens? Fight Night here is back after a 2-week layoff. Kev Dog here with me, Bet Juice, Jiu-Jitsu Dan here with me, ready to bring you some winners. You know, it's been 2 weeks off. PFL Championship happened since then. Some other breaking news has happened since then. But more importantly, we all celebrated the holiday. I hope you guys had a great holiday. Everyone watching, you too as well. And how you guys been? I missed you guys' faces.
You know how it goes, man. Living the dream, happy and healthy, super grateful for life itself. And it's super excited to just be back here and doing what we love to do.
Yeah, you know, it's these weeks off are kind of weird, right? I mean, luckily we had the PFL last week, but this is a serious card, you know, for a fight night card. You got like 15 fights. I mean, this is one of those cards that can end like, you know, 2-3 in the morning Eastern time, you know. So a lot of underrated fights. I think this should be a banger.
Yeah, and just weighing it against the next pay-per-view 282, this card's so much more stacked, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're talking about like the bona fide veterans of the sport. I mean, on this card, like there are some absolute legends that have, you know, 20, 25, 30 plus, you know, UFC fights. So it should be a banger.
Yeah, and somehow we get Kyle Daukaus versus Eryk on the main card. I don't know how that fight made its way up there. I was scratching my head all week because it's a 6-fight main card. You know, if there was one to get bumped, you'd think it's that one. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. First of all, we'll touch on the PFL a little bit. Larissa Pacheco taking home the belt there, upsetting Kayla Harrison, giving her first professional MMA loss, kind of knocked her off her high horse there. Pacheco, a play I've, you know, to give myself a little pat on the back, I've been calling that one out since August, I think, since she punched her ticket to the finals. Wound up showing a little bit of cowardice myself and not betting her money line. I only took her knockout, and I screwed the pooch on that one. But nonetheless, you know, new champion in the PFL, but what did you guys' thoughts on that card? If you guys watched it, Kev, I know you watched it. Dan, I'm not too sure if you got to catch up on it.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was spectacular. I think the highlight for me was the Olivier Aubin-Mercier knockout. I mean, the man has never knocked out anybody in the PFL, came in and just handled business like a man. Much respect to him. Obviously, a veteran, not a veteran, but a previous fighter in the UFC. So for him to, you know, take this different route and take home the $1 million was something special for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you there. I mean, obviously, you know, being a Montreal native myself, you know, it's nice to see a world championship come back to Quebec, and you know, it was a tough matchup, right? I mean, those guys had trained together in the past, so they knew each other pretty well, and you know, who saw that coming, right? I mean, just a perfect check hook and laid him out flat, and you know, again, I mean, you got to give your props to Pacheco for taking down Harrison. I mean, you did call it. You didn't hold a money line ticket. I held a money line ticket more as a hedge than anything. So I did cash there. But
yeah, and you were the one that called me stupid for thinking she was going to win. So it's funny how that all works out.
It goes like that sometimes, you know. But man, you know, I've been hearing rumblings of Pacheco wanting another fight with Harrison. I mean, why not at this point? You know, I think it makes sense. One thing's for sure, though. I think Harrison, you know, to say that she belongs sort of like a top 5 sort of pound for pound women's MMA. I think you know, Friday kind of put a lid on that argument, right? So it's tough, but I mean, can you imagine her against like Amanda Nunes? I mean, it's you know, she was having trouble with Pacheco. Like Nunes would absolutely steamroller.
Yeah, and the most head-scratching thing from all that is now you have like the head of the PFL is trying to schedule a Kayla Harrison Cyborg fight. I don't know if you guys have seen that. He's sending out tweets out the yin-yang right now, like offering $1 million each. The winner gets $1 million and a Rolls Royce. But it's like your champion now is Larissa Pacheco. Shouldn't that be the one that you're trying to set up against Cyborg? Like the Harrison hype train seems to be a little bit died down. She would have competed with the top of them in like 2012, 2013, like during Ronda Rousey's run. It was like almost like a very similar kind of background, you know, judokas. They both have their specialties. They're good against on the ground against certain opponents. But once you level up to someone with the strength and power like Pacheco, which, you know, Kev, we spoke about this when I called you Saturday. It's funny to think that she fought at 115 in the UFC against Jessica Andrade and lost. And now she finds herself at 155 in PFL beating Kayla Harrison. An insane arc there for her. But to get away from the PFL and back on the UFC a little bit, we got to touch on this 282 main event cancellation with with Glover Teixeira and Yuri Prochazka. Yuri with the shoulder injury, taking him out. Glover asked for more time to take on Magomed Ankalaev. The UFC denied his request. They needed a main event for this fight. You know, that's part of the reason why they schedule another top fight in the weight class on the card in case something like this happens. So from a business standpoint, you kind of have to understand the UFC's side of things, but at the same time, like, Glover is a legend of the sport. We all feel bad for him that he's missing out on this opportunity. He's gonna have to work his way back up for the belt again. Who knows when that fight's gonna happen? But we find ourselves now with Magomed Ankalaev taking on Jan Blachowicz for a heavyweight championship, and it's it's a shame that fight fell through. But what are you guys' thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, my thoughts are, I think the true heart of a champion will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I was a little bit disappointed to see that, Glover did turn down a potential fight with Magomed. I think it was on the table. Obviously, it's a scary, scary matchup, but it's just one of those things, man. You're towards the tail end of your career. You have a shot at the belt. And although he was training for Yuri and Magomed came into the picture, just one of those things where, I wish he would have taken that leap of faith. Now, mind you, Jan Blachowicz and Magomed's going to be an absolute banger. Obviously, we've seen Magomed's success, and he's been destined for this spot, right? I think over the last few years, we knew deep down that at some point he would have this shot at the belt. So I think it'll be a really interesting matchup. I expect Magomed to get the job done and see that European matchup between him and Yuri Prochazka.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like the UFC kind of did Glover dirty. It's the guy has maybe a couple fights left in him, 2, maybe 3, and at this point in his career, I mean, the clock is his enemy, right? So it's it's unfortunate for sure. I just don't like. I don't feel like Jan kind of warranted that. He's coming off that win against Rakic, where Rakic blew out his knee, and then he gets a title shot. I mean, I could think of a couple guys in the light heavyweight division that are much more deserving. Jamal Hill, for one. I know he's fighting Anthony Smith, but I think his last performance proved that he belongs in the top 5, and this would have been a great opportunity. I think. I do understand, though, Glover not wanting to take this fight on short notice, because Ankalaev is a savage. Completely different skill set than Prochazka, much more well-rounded, I think. And I think having 5 rounds with Yuri, Glover probably thought that he had him figured out. He knew what he had to do to win. I think just taking that fight on short notice, it would be the game planning would just be so much different. And he wanted to push this into January to fight at the Rio card, right? So it wasn't that big a stretch. Again, unfortunate that the UFC didn't want to do it. But, again, I understand it's a business. You want to have a title fight for a big pay-per-view card. So, they did what they could. But, personally, I think there are a couple guys that are a little more deserving than Jan in this one. I love Ankalaev in this spot. I mean, I think it's, it's basically a layup for him in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the thing with Glover is, like, you don't get more of a drastic, drop off from competition going from Yuri to Magomed Ankalaev. So it is understandable why he'd want more time. It's not like he's preparing for Jan and Jan falls out like that. I think he would have taken that fight, but just that Yuri is just such a unique individual. His fighting style, his approach to the fight, like, that's a total 180 turn around and fight someone on short notice like Magomed Ankalaev, who is a killer, who, we have to give him his props. He's done everything he's needed to do in the UFC outside of a last-second submission loss to Paul Craig. But, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Like I mentioned, I think that this card in front of us is a way better fight card from top to bottom. Even if that main event stayed in place, this card is absolutely stacked. And, I guess we'll lead right into it from there. We got Kyle Daukaus taking on Eryk Anders here in the middleweight division to start this one off. Kyle Daukaus finds himself like minus 210 to come back on Eryk Anders, currently around plus 175. Kyle Daukaus is one of these guys I feel like we keep seeing around this minus 200, minus 300 spot. And it seems like to me that it's a little bit unwarranted because he got a win over like Jamie Pickett. He's had some tough fights as well. And it's tough for me to kind of stomach getting him at this spot. I mean, the guy just broke 3 bones in his face, I think 2 orbital bones and another one behind his eye socket. And that was just a few months ago. He's coming back into this one against a heavy veteran in Eryk Anders, who, fought up at the light heavyweight division, making his way back down to middleweight. He had a questionable loss last time out against Jun Young Park. That was a very close fight. And then before that, got submitted by Andre Muniz, who, let's be honest, everyone in that division is probably going to get submitted by him outside of Uriah Hall, just losing an absolutely dominant decision to him. And, I think that this fight's a lot closer than the betting line suggests. I don't think either one does anything special outside of Daukaus' ability to get a Darce choke. But I see a difficult path for him to land that in this fight. I really do, because the way that Eryk Anders likes to fight, he likes to press you up against the fence. He wants to grab you with the body lock, and just use his strength and his power to drag you down. It's very rare that we see him shooting like single legs or double legs. If he does go for that sort of takedown, it's more of like a football tackle. And it's pretty self-explanatory why the guy played at Alabama. So you can see, how that translates over to the octagon. But Kyle Daukaus, I feel like, might have some trouble getting Anders down to the mat in this one, just based off sheer size. I mean, Kyle Daukaus, he is, like I said, he's dangerous in that one facet of his game, but everywhere else, it kind of leaves a lot to be desired. I don't think that he's a threat on the feet. I don't think that his power is something that could put out Eryk Anders. Doesn't necessarily mix in kicks all too well either. So this is going to be like a grindy affair to me. I think this one goes the distance personally. I don't necessarily favor a side. At the current odds, I'd have to lean Eryk Anders, but it's not a pick I love. The guy's 35 years old. The cut down to middleweight for him can't be easy at this point in his career. So for those reasons, I'll probably stay off this one. If anything, maybe like a short shot at a decision or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember mentioning this fight a few days ago in the chat, and you said it very well, Matt. Both guys stink, and that's just how it is. It's interesting. Eryk Anders, was really on the cusp of breaking through, right? I mean, back in 2018, he had a headline fight versus Thiago Santos, and it seems like since that crack to the rib cage, like he just hasn't been able to really evolve his game. I mean, he's 6-7 in the UFC. He doesn't really mix in the striking very well. I just don't like it. It's lower volume, like you said, those takedowns are just, there's just no technique in them. It's really just kind of like a hug and, kind of find that, trip there. But, he is massive for the division. And so there's that, right? I mean, he was a former light heavyweight coming down. It seems like he doesn't historically have much issues with the weight cut, now at 35 years old, coming off the split decision. I do wonder, where his head's at. I'm sure that he's probably somewhat on the way out at some point. And a guy in Daukaus, he's really that one-trick pony, right? I mean, he's a pure submission arsenal, right? He's got 11 wins, 9 by submission. And that's just the name of his game. Mind you, he did just get cracked by Dolidze a few months ago, which does raise a semi-red flag there. But, I think that he does time, his takedowns pretty well. I think that he will actually be able to take Anders down with ease. And as a matter of fact, I have a good feeling that Daukaus will find a submission in this spot. Anders has been submitted before. Daukaus is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Eryk Anders is quite incompetent on the ground there. So, give me Daukaus by submission.
Eryk Anders is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, Dan, I feel like you should jump in right there at that point. He's just got the smile. He's got nothing else to add.
Go ahead.
We've heard the word incompetent grappling come out of Kev's mouth before when describing guys. He also said that what was his name? Holmes was going to win by submission. I mean, it's one of those things where things just kind of come out of his mouth. You can't blame the guy. But I think when I look at this fight, it's pretty clear where Daukaus' hole is, and he gets overpowered by guys. He gets overpowered by guys and seems to have a real issue getting controlled when he's at a power deficit. And this is like, for me, this seems like a telltale kind of fight that kind of plays out like that. Anders is going to be the bigger, stronger guy. He's going to be able to impose his will a little bit more. Granted, again, I'm not saying Anders is a world beater on the ground. But he's competent, and he's had enough fights in the UFC where he knows where his strengths are. I think what Eryk Anders does really well is he fights within himself. He knows kind of where he's good and where he's lacking. And Kyle Daukaus is just one of these guys that I just feel like how can you lay minus 200 on this guy? I just can't bring myself to do it. So for me, it's an automatic dog or pass. Will I bet Eryk Anders? I don't know yet, but there's no way that I'm laying minus 200 on Kyle Daukaus. Again, you look at who he's beaten. I mean, Dustin Stolfus is a pretty good grappler. And Jamie Pickett, again, I've said this time and time again, like he is absolutely, for me, bottom 3 in his division. So I don't really, I just don't see how you get to minus 200 here. So, again, take that, compare against Anders, a guy who's, he's lost some fights. He's lost some close fights. He's lost to some good guys. He's also lost some bad guys. It's kind of a mixed bag with him, right? You don't really know what he's going to get. But What you do know he's going to come with is that power and that physicality. And I think if he leans on that for 3 rounds, I think he can edge out a decision. So I like this to go the distance. I don't know if I'll be picking Anders from a betting perspective, but just put a gun to my head. Who do I think is going to win? I think Anders is gonna squeak this one out. Probably a greasy split decision.
I feel very similar. Let me ask you, Dan. You're the grappling guy. Kyle Daukaus' move is a Darce choke. Someone with a thick neck like that, Eryk Anders, how much harder does that make it for Daukaus to sink that in? Or is someone as that has it down pat as much as he does it not necessarily matter as much?
No, I mean Darce chokes are usually it's not so the size of the guy's neck. I mean, it's hard to submit a guy with a big neck like a guillotine, for example, just because it's hard to wrap your head around. Like a Darce choke is more easily attainable, but it's easier to catch a Darce if you have long arms, right? And I mean, he has like a 76-inch reach. I wouldn't say he has like freakishly long arms, like a John Jones or like a I don't know, like a Kevin Holland or something like that. So it's like he has a few Darce finishes, right? I mean, he's got, again, like look who he's finishing with these Darce. You got Jamie fucking Pickett. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm of the opinion that I think Anders will be able to defend that. Like, he got submitted by Andre Muniz, which 95% of the division will get submitted by this guy. So I don't think that him getting submitted by a guy automatically sort of tells you that he's a shitty grappler. Like the guy has fought guys that are grappled dominant. He's lost those fights. He beat Gerald Meerschaert, right? Very grappling dominant fighter that again, he was able to squeak. To me, I see that kind of going like that, right? Kind of either way, and yeah, dog or pass for me, hands down.
Yeah, I agree. Dog or pass. I think that the difference maker in this one for me comes down to Eryk Anders, physicality, his strength, his size, the fact that he used to fight up at light heavyweight. He has the football background. That his center of gravity is, up there with the best of them. It's going to be tough for me to see a path for Daukaus to get a win here. I know the fight's actually favored to go the distance. I think the over 2.5 currently sits at -175. And personally, when I ask myself who's more likely to win the decision here, it's Eryk Anders. He's got the forward pressure. He's going to put you against the fence. He's going to control you for a decent amount of time. And unless Daukaus is able to get him on the ground and hold him there for 15 minutes, I don't see a decision coming in his favor. And like I said, someone as big as Eryk Anders, as strong as Eryk Anders, it kind of makes it a little bit tough for me to see how he gets that control time. Does that mean that he can't sink into submission? Absolutely. He definitely can sink into submission, but they're kind of giving you the notice here. This one is likely to go the distance over 2.5. Everyone's going to look, the 8 knockouts on Eryk Anders, the 9 submissions from Daukaus, the fact that they both got finished in like their last 2 fights or so. So, the fact that over is so heavily juiced up, it tells me that Eryk Anders is worth a shot at decision here. I think it's in at like +375. I don't think that's a bad bet at all. I struggle to see him getting a finish here. And as far as that fight goes, I think it's a lot closer than the odds suggest. And to piggyback off what Dan said, -200 on Daukaus, like it almost just seems like it's because of name recognition at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, for the record, look, I mean, I respect Eryk Anders and his brown belt, but like proof is in the pudding, right? I mean, what we've seen from him in the UFC, not only did he get submitted by Muniz, which obviously that's his specialty, but he just lost an exhibition grappling match to Petrosky by submission. Mind you, Anders only has 1 submission on his record. So like, sure, you've got a brown belt, but like, are you really like putting that, to paper, like in your fight in a mixed martial arts octagon? I don't think I can say he has. So for that reason, I'm sticking to my guns here. I do like Kyle Daukaus by late submission here. And, think he's destined for a win. Even though he's gotten cracked recently, I don't think Anders possesses that sort of power. And give me Daukaus all day by submission.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Daukaus got plates put into his face a few months ago. He's already coming back and fighting before the year ends. So kudos to him. Fucking warrior. Big balls on that guy, clearly taking this fight. But let's move on to this next one. Roman Dolidze, the guy who put those plates in Kyle Daukaus' face with that knee against the clinch too. Knocked him out there. He is taking on Jack Hermansson in this matchup. This is, in my opinion, as black and white as it gets. Jack Hermansson, I think, is just dominating his way to a decision in this matchup. I think that he's going to be able to take Roman down at ease. If Roman showed us anything his last 2 fights, is that he does have a danger factor, right? I mean, we just talked about that knee he landed on Daukaus, knocked him out, literally broke his face, which not many people could say in the UFC. And then following that, just tore Phil Hawes's knee to shreds on the ground. Somehow Dan Miragliotta let the fight continue. And, the rest was history from there. Absolutely knocked him out cold. But he's going against such a savvy veteran in Jack Hermansson here. He's coming off a very good win against Chris Curtis his last time out, a win that really frustrated Chris Curtis because he was able to stick to his game plan so tightly and just, fight behind his jab and just keep his distance. And he didn't even really utilize the wrestling there. I think what Hermansson does a great job, which I think we'll see in this fight, is he's going to stand with Roman for the first round here and kind of make Roman get into this false belief that it's going to be a stand-up battle until he shoots that shot. And from there, I don't see Dolidze having a huge submission threat off his back against someone like Hermansson that has such a powerful wrestling base that knows where to keep himself out of danger. He's well-versed on the ground, too. He minds his P's and Q's. So this one at minus 180 for Jack Hermansson, I'm loving this bet. It's like this close to a money shades bet for me, but it's very black and white. I think Jack Hermansson just is able to control this. I think it's a 30-27 across the boards, and someone big like Dolidze making another weight cut on this short notice, I don't really think it fares well for him. But yeah, give me Jack Hermansson here in this spot all day long.
Yeah, I mean, clearly on paper, right? I mean, Jack Hermansson clearly is the more well-rounded guy. He's got 10 knockouts, 7 submissions on his record, and as we allude to, it's not a single type of submission. He's got rear naked chokes, heel hooks, guillotine, armbar. So, clearly the guy is well equipped on the ground. But look, Dolidze, say what you want about the man. This man has nuclear power. It's one of those. He's one of those fighters that really does scare you.
He's got that Georgian fighting spirit, Kev. That's what it is.
Man. You already know the vibes, and it's it's one of those things where he is so incredibly lethal in the clinch. Mind you, he is taking this on short notice. Mind you, he is lower volume, but with that sort of power, man, would it surprise me if he flatlines Hermansson in the first, second round? Absolutely not. Hermansson has been knocked out by power punchers before in the UFC. So for that reason, I'm a big fade all around. I something's telling me that Dolidze is going to find a knockout here. Obviously, Hermansson is on paper, he's going to be taking this fight to the ground. He's going to be, controlling the fight where it goes. But, if he controls this fight, in that first round, second round dings, and we see a knockout first minute, it really wouldn't surprise me here. So, yeah, like a Dolidze knockout in this spot. Much respect to Hermansson. He's an incredible prospect and offered a lot to the UFC up to this point. But, man, Dolidze is a man on a mission, and I think he's going to find something special here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can call a 34-year UFC fighter a prospect, but,
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to be a smart ass. I left it alone.
Listen, I mean, Dolidze is getting. Listen, you got to call a spade, right? He is getting this fight because of the performance that he just had, where he just absolutely ripped Phil Hawes's knee to smithereens, right? I mean, that was some pretty high level stuff off the back, right? He went ahead and attacked a heel hook and was able to actually pop the knee from the side, which you don't actually see very often. So it was fucking brutal because you saw the second that Phil got up, his knee was just completely shredded. And
Roman stopped fighting too.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to. I remember having a KO prop on Roman Dolidze for that fight. So we have the ref to thank for that one because that, Phil Hawes should have tapped. He didn't. That's his own fault. But you got to give the guy some respect, right? He tried to fight through it, but that knockout was, that was imminent after that kind of knee injury. Dolidze is dangerous off his back. The problem that I have here is that he's too willing to go to his back. And that might work against a dominant wrestler like Phil Hawes, who, again, loves to play the top game and not necessarily much of a submission threat. So I think some of those high-level leg lock entries that Dolidze likes to go for, Phil Hawes, doesn't seem like he's as comfortable as I think Jack Hermansson will be. Hermansson doesn't have the best wrestling, but it's there if he needs it. And, he has very, very good grappling. So I think any sort of leg lock entanglement that Dolidze tries to throw at him, which it seems like he does in every fight, I think Hermansson's going to be able to, to avoid and defend. And ultimately, I think what we're going to see here is Hermansson cruise to a decision. Anytime you have like a short notice opponent switch like this, the game plan kind of goes out the window. And, because of that, you'll often see fights go the distance. A fight like this, Dolidze is very durable, but he has been, we have seen him gas later on in fights. Whereas Hermansson, this guy can keep up a very high pace for as long as he needs to. His fight against Chris Curtis I had Curtis in that one. I thought, given what we saw Curtis do with Adolfo Vieira and defending takedowns, I was very surprised to see Hermansson dominate on the feet as he did. Very surprising actually. So Hermansson, unfortunately, is going to be one of these guys that he's never going to reach that title shot. I think he came close and then kind of fell flat on his face against Cannonier. But you gotta respect the skill set, and I think he is the more well-rounded guy. I think he can pose his own submission threat to Dolidze as well. And on the feet, albeit I think Dolidze has the power advantage, I think Hermansson just has the wider skill set. So give me Hermansson here. I see on Bet Online the odds are blowing up to like minus 200. So I don't know if I like that, but I do like the idea of taking a stab at Jack Hermansson by decision. I'm seeing that at plus 115. More so because of the opponent change. I just think that when you're planning for one guy and then it gets switched, a couple weeks out, it's tough to formulate a game plan that you can really kind of stick to for 3 rounds. So I think Hermansson's going to have to play it a little bit safe. He's going to watch out for some leg locks and certainly the power of Dolidze. But as the fight progresses, it's definitely going to favor him, and I like it to win on points here.
No doubt, no doubt. And truth be told, definition of prospect: a person regarded as likely to succeed. Remember, gentlemen. Age is just a number. So
look at Glover.
Indeed, Hermansson is a prospect. So with that being said, give me a Dolidze knockout round 2.
Man, I really can't express how confident. You know what? I can express how confident I am. I think Jack Hermansson at minus 180 is the best bet you can make on this entire fight card. I really do. I think, in terms of what he's proven in this organization with the UFC, the talent that he's faced, the way that, he recovered from that Sean Strickland loss to then go beat Chris Curtis the way he did. I think, like I said, it's just everything is falling into his lap for this fight. I think it's setting him up. Dolidze, listen, he has really poor takedown defense. Laureano Staropoli got him down like 3 or 5 times. It was a very closely contested fight. Jack Hermansson is just on a completely different level. And like I said, there's always a threat of a submission from Roland Dolidze, but Jack Hermansson, he minds his P's and Q's on the ground. He has such a strong wrestling base, and that's one of the best ways to avoid getting submitted is having that strong base and just always going position over submission, which is what Jack Hermansson does best. So give me Hermansson here, minus 180. Sorry, Kev, that you think Dolidze is going to win by knockout. You're better off just Venmoing me that money. You're going to bet on that instead. I'll put it on Hermansson for you, and I'll give you the kickback. So if you want, I'll set that up for you. But otherwise, man, Money Shades play of the week is Jack Hermansson minus 180. I really, really, really love the spot for him.
Wow. I'll say, man, I'm genuinely shocked. You've put on these Money Shades quite a few times, and I don't think you've ever put on a Money Shades here when an opponent is this dangerous, this vicious. So he's
not that dangerous. I think it's being blown out of proportion. It's funny because before the Kyle Daukaus fight, everyone was ragging Dolidze for being this boring decision fighter coming off back-to-back decisions over, like I just mentioned, Laureano Staropoli. Trevin Giles, I think, went to decision as well. So it's funny now that he's regarded as this danger threat. Like I mentioned before, the threat is prevalent. It's always there, but he's not like Francis Ngannou going to come out here and starch someone. He doesn't have that. I just don't see it. Look, this could end up getting clipped on bad freezing takes or whatever it is, but I just don't see it coming. I think Jack Hermansson domination start to finish.
Should be a fun fight. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Let's move on to this next one, though. This is probably the fight I'm looking forward to most on this entire fight card. That is Tai Tuivasa going against Sergei Pavlovich. Basically Ivan Drago's brother if he fought in the MMA, right? He's just an absolute monster, a specimen. Lord knows what what his urine sample looks like without hiding anything from USADA. Just looking at the man, he took out Derek Lewis in like a minute last time out. Some argued early stoppage. I think we had the over 1.5 in that fight, if I remember correctly. And, I think it was a good stoppage. Like Derek Lewis fell flat on his face and tried acting like he was okay right after. But I'm interested in hearing your guys' take on this before I jump in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I had Pavlovich against Lewis. I had Pavlovich inside the distance against Lewis, and that cashed nicely for me. I think a lot of people had seen like the layoff from Pavlovich and wasn't sure what to expect, right? I mean, before that, actually not before the Lewis fight, but I think before the fight before that against Shamil, he had like 2.5 years off, right? And I made the point that again, he's 30 years old. That gap between like age like 27 to 30, I mean, that's really where you're hitting your prime and making all those vast improvements. I mean, the guy has one blemish on his record, and albeit it's a bit of an embarrassing L, right? He got kind of
he got ground and pounded by Overeem.
Yeah, well, listen, Overeem has some serious ground and pound, but I think it's more the way that he ended up on his back that was just a little bit suspect, and that's why a lot of people were thinking if he gets on his back against Lewis, this guy is donezo, and we saw what happened. Like he came in hyper aggressive and just completely overwhelmed Lewis. What I don't like about this matchup for Tuivasa is that after the beating that he took at UFC France, he's making a quick turnaround here, and diving into like his the run that he was on before leading up to that Cyril Gane fight. I mean, it wasn't that impressive. I gotta say, like the strength of schedule, like to me, I feel like he was winning fights that he should have won. I mean, Harry Hunsucker, Greg Hardy, Augusto Sakai, Derek Lewis is about the hardest fight of those four that I just mentioned. And I still think that, I say this in hindsight, right? Because I did hold the Lewis ticket in that fight, but I just think that a guy like Pavlovich has all the tools to beat a guy like Tuivasa, and he hasn't taken the damage that Tuivasa has. So I think that we'll see even bigger improvements from his last fight. We'll probably get to see a little bit more of Pavlovich this time around, just because I think Tuivasa is just a little bit more durable than Derek Lewis at this point in his career. But I think what we'll see is Pavlovich really show it here. I think he's going to be the guy that is going to be the more technical striker. But again, the thing about Bam Bam is he has that nuclear punch. He has that power. Only guy to knock down Cyril Gane, so that's certainly saying something. But what we also saw in that fight is that he is absolutely susceptible to body shots, body kicks, teep kicks. Like that was a real problem. Gane just absolutely demolished his body with a variety of shots, and it opened up everything else for him. And ultimately, that was his downfall. So I just think a guy like Tuivasa is an exciting fighter. You're always going to want to see him fight, but I think Pavlovich is here to make a run at the title. And give me Pavlovich here. I mean, I think I think the line is it's been a little bit blown up. I'm seeing it at like -220 here on Bet Online. I don't know how much I love that. I do think he can finish Tuivasa, but I don't know if I'm willing to lay money. So no play for me at this point. But again, put a gun to my head. I'm going Pavlovich.
Yeah, let me just interject real quick because you mentioned Tai Tuivasa's strength of schedule, and it's funny because when I was looking at Pavlovich, I was thinking of his strength of schedule, just how absolutely embarrassing it is. I mean, he comes in,
no doubt,
he loses to an over-the-hill Overeem, right? He then beats Marcelo Golm, Mo Green, Shamil Abdurakhimov, and then Derek Lewis in what some people consider an early stoppage.
But that's reflective of where he's sitting in the rankings, right? I mean, Tuivasa is so that's that. I guess that's where I'm coming from is that Tuivasa, where he's ranked versus who he's fought. Granted, they've all been finishes. Like you can't take that away, but I just feel like again, the heavyweight division is so thin that you can get. I mean, that's how you end up with like Derek Lewis being a #1 contender in the division. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's one of those things.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is purely a striking affair, right? I mean, I have this weird feeling that there's this like upbringing of Russian heavyweights or Russian descent, of course, Pavlovich, Magomed Ankalaev, and then there's the resurgence of the other guy. I'm drawing a blank. Volkov, that's right. So, look, man, this is actually one of my stronger convictions on this card. I really like Pavlovich in this spot. A guy in Tuivasa, man, coming off of that knockout 3 months ago. It's like, I'm really surprised he took this fight, especially with the Perth card, in February. It just seems like the energy is going to be weird. It's going to be off here. Obviously Tuivasa is incredibly tough, man. I mean, we saw, obviously in that Gane fight before he got knocked out, but in his career, he can take a punch, man. He can take it and he can give it, man. And that's what you love to see. But again, coming off that knockout, it's more or less of a psychological type of thing, man. I mean, Sergei is an incredibly dangerous individual. And the way he knocked out Derek Lewis and just roared, I mean, it was like ding, ding, ding. That man is up juice to the gills, confirmed. And I think that's really going to be the difference. I hate to say it, but like, look, the man's going to have 9 inches in reach. He's got an 84-inch reach for this heavyweight division. Tuivasa, 75 inches in reach. It's like little dinosaur arms for this weight class. And I just think Pavlovich is the stronger guy. He's going to have higher volume. I think he, obviously he's incredibly strong, and I'm firmly expecting a knockout in this spot. I believe the KO prop on Sergei is around -135. Think that's a great look. Guy, 16 wins, 13 by knockout. Tuivasa coming off the knockout here. So, yeah, give me Pavlovich by knockout. I'm liking a lot of finishes on this main card.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to go against the grain here, but it's like this play has been growing on me like day by day. Tai Tuivasa +180. Like, think about the fight he just put on against Cyril Gane. No one's taken Cyril Gane to task. Even Francis Ngannou didn't take Cyril Gane to task like that. Francis Ngannou had to beat him by taking him down and laying on him. Granted, Francis Ngannou was fighting on one leg, but outside of that, Tai Tuivasa gave Cyril Gane the toughest fight he's ever had. He knocked him down. He took damage. He kept moving forward. And, I think that, Dan kind of touched on it with the way that Pavlovich lost to Overeem. I think it kind of peel back the curtains a little bit. I don't think he's a good nail. Like, I think Pavlovich is an excellent hammer, terrible nail. Like, I don't think he's found himself in those adverse situations and responded well to them. Obviously, it's his only loss on his record. You can make the argument, coming up the ranks in the regional scene, that he was fighting a ton of cans in the UFC. It's all fights he's supposed to win. Even the Derek Lewis fight, he was supposed to win. I believe he was close to 2-1 favorite in that spot. But when it comes to Tai Tuivasa, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get someone tough as nails, is going to move forward. He's going to be able to take a punch to land his own. And I think what separates Tai Tuivasa here in this fight is, for one, his leg kicks are nasty. Like, he throws some of the best leg kicks in the heavyweight division. And someone like Sergei Pavlovich that is so boxing forward on that front leg, a lot of weight being pressed down on that front leg. I don't know if he's going to be able to check it. He's such a big guy. If Tai Tuivasa get those leg kicks off, I think that it could set himself up to really land more damage over the top against Sergei Pavlovich. And another thing that I noticed is Tai Tuivasa in the clinch is way, way, way better than Sergei Pavlovich is. I think that Tai Tuivasa could land close within range, due to those alligator arms that you mentioned, right? He lands tough in the clinch. That's how he got Derek Lewis out of there, right? He could just stuff those elbows over the top. He could land knees. He's very well versed in there. And without a true takedown threat from Sergei Pavlovich here in the spot, like, it's all pointing to me like Tai Tuivasa. I really like the number here at +180. One of those picks, I take it at a coin flip, even if this was -110. It's not strictly a value play, because I think that there are real paths to victory for Tai Tuivasa. He's fought in these big moments before. And you have to imagine that crowd there in Orlando is going to be heavily pro Tai Tuivasa. I mean, the fans love him. Maybe Pavlovich, kind of finds himself, performing his best in those sorts of crowds, because he fought Derek Lewis in Houston, if I'm not mistaken, back in Texas. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I think another one that I think is way closer than the line suggests. I think a lot of love is coming in on Pavlovich. Obviously, how can you not think that the guy's going to knock everyone he faces out? Look at the size of him. Just look at the size of his hands. But, Tai Tuivasa has been there before. And for me, this one just comes down to who's going to be able to be a nail in this box. I think they're going to both have their moments. It's going to come down to who responds best to it. But you guys bring up good points. I mean, Tai Tuivasa just fought in September, took that beating. Like, absolutely crazy for him to come back 3 months later in this spot against an absolute killer like Pavlovich. So Definitely the fight I'm looking forward to most, especially after the absolute spectacle that Tai Tuivasa Sorogan put on last time out. So looking forward to this. I really like Tai Tuivasa here, and call me crazy. You're gonna call
You're crazy.
No, don't say submission, please.
I'm not done yet. I think Tai Tuivasa by decision here at plus 1200 is a fantastic bet to make on this fight.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a really good point, Matt, because I mean, when you look at Sergei's record, right? I mean, obviously he opened up his UFC career getting knocked out by Alistair Overeem. UFC really put him back, not giving him that strength of schedule. And look, I mean, he's knocked out every opponent in the first round. So like, in the UFC, we really haven't seen that cardio truly be tested. So, I think that if this over 1.5 does hit at plus 175, I think it's going to get really sweaty for the Sergei bettors for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at the last fight with Gane. I think that one finished in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken, right? 3rd or 4th round?
Yeah, it was late 3rd.
Late 3rd, yeah. So, I mean, we know Tai can last 3 rounds,
right?
Or at minimum 2.5. So, I really don't mind taking a little sprinkle there on Tai Tuivasa plus 1200 by decision. But you guys have every right to call me crazy for it. I know.
No, I mean, it certainly makes sense. I was watching an interview with Tai Tuivasa the other day, and basically he was saying that this is his last fight for some time. Like he wants to take an extended period of time off with business ventures, with family, this and that. I mean, do you think that plays a factor, like with the hunger, like in this spot, like given that he may have his mind somewhere else coming in here 3 months later versus a scary motherfucker in Pavlovich?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's
absolutely.
You could have made the same. You could have made the same exact argument against Dustin Poirier last month. You could have said he's got the hot sauce launch going on that week. His mind's elsewhere, and look what he did. Right?
No, I think there's levels.
It's hard for us to draw conclusions from that sort of speculation. I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I mean, I just think Tuivasa was, if he would have won that fight against Gane, the title shot was his, and now he's got to work his way back. And I mean, that's like the last thing that you want to hear a guy say before he's going into a fight. Like, after this fight, I'm taking an extended period. Like, where's your head at? Like, you didn't hear Dustin saying that. You know what I mean? Dustin was saying the opposite. Dustin was saying, I've been trying to get a fight for a year now, and this is what they gave me. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. That's the thing with the differences.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. Like, if we see a Bam Bam knockout and someone hands him that shoe in Orlando, man, it's going to be iconic. It's a signature.
Yeah, that'd be a hell of a way. And also, just to rebut the point, I don't think the UFC has any interest in like building up Russian fighters at this current moment. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to put them on a pedestal.
Well,
I put Nicolau in the title shot. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Ankalaev earned his way to that title shot, and he fell into the title shot. I find it really tough for the UFC to be sitting down behind closed doors and they're like, we have to promote this Russian fighter. It's going to be a huge hit for us. Like,
well, I think like the UFC has put it this way, man. I think the UFC has, I mean, obviously there's been a very select few of legendary Russian fighters at heavyweight, but at the end of the day, the heavyweight division hasn't seen, that Dagestani, that Russian-esque, aura to it, right? In that division, and, you have this guy upcoming Pavlovich, obviously I'm drawing a blank again on the tall guy.
Volkov.
Yeah, Volkov, man. Like I firmly believe we're going to see a interesting resurgence of Volkov, even though he's, been in the UFC, which God feels like
he just knocked out your boy Biggie Boy in that last fight.
Yeah.
So, he's juiced to the gills. I don't know if you guys saw a recent.
That was actually he duped us. He duped us. That was a face swap. Yeah, he was the other guy. They swapped faces in the picture. I was like, no fucking way is he this big. He's on the McGregor treatment, I think. But no, it was a face swap.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But, hey, guys, this is going to be a freaking banger. Man, if this goes to a decision, like cap the hat to you, Matt, because I think that if this does go to a decision, I tend to think that Tuivasa has the edge, right? I mean, we've seen that history of him going deep. So it'll be interesting, man. If Pavlovich can't get him out early, how's that gasing going to hold? And, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if there were ever a fight to throw a shoey bet on the line, I'm not even get into it. But if there were ever a fight to throw a shoey bet on the line, it'd be this one. But
yeah, we can't get into it because certain individuals don't stay true to their word.
Not going to get ahead of myself there. But let's move on to this next fight in the flyweight division. We have an absolute banger of a fight. I mean, our boy Matt Schnell taking on Matheus Nicolau here in this spot. Matt Schnell, if you guys remember, if you watched this video in UFC Long Island, we sat here, we talked about Matt Schnell plus 800 by submission, and sure enough, it came true, man. We all cashed in on that, and it was funny because I actually rewatched that leading up to this, and we were talking about it, and we all were like, we really feel Sumadares is going to do a good job on the feet, keeping his range. He's going to be able to hurt Schnell, but at the same time, we were like, all of his losses are by submission, and Schnell's only chance in this fight truly is by submission. And it kind of played out exactly how we were talking. And Kev asked us what we thought that submission line would be at. I think Dan said it would be like plus 350, and I guessed around plus 450. And once we saw that plus 800 line on it, the light bulb effect just went off right away. We threw that one out there. We posted all over the Discord, Matt Schnell plus 800 by submission. And I personally was there live watching that one. So that was one of the best cashes ever, watching that insane fight, one of the fights of the year. And, we cashed on that plus 800 here. But he finds himself in another underdog spot, plus 300, the comeback on Nicolau minus 380. And, I hate to do it, but I think you got to go against Matt Schnell in this spot. I think that Nicolau's got him covered everywhere. I talked before about how Hermansson covers his P's and Q's really well on the ground. I think that Nicolau covers his P's and Q's everywhere. He's so defensively sound on the feet. I think, on the mat too, he's defensively sound as well. And, I don't really see a true threat from Schnell in this spot. I think that Nicolau is going to be able to hurt Schnell. That fight took place in July that Schnell took so much damage in. I mean, the fact that he was still standing in that second round still blows my mind. He had to have absorbed at least like 150 significant strikes to the head. And he finds himself fighting here about 4 or 5 months later against Matheus Nicolau, who is one of those guys that fought in the UFC. They had mild success. They left the UFC. I think he fought one fight out of the organization, brought him back. He's been undefeated since then, beat the likes of Tim Elliott, a savvy veteran in the division who, just beat Tagir Lembekov in his last fight. So that's a good win. And then he came out against David Dvorak and pretty much manhandled him the entire time, had a crazy knockdown in the second round that had Dvorak absolutely stunned. I think, what this one comes down to is just the ability to protect yourself in the octagon. I think that Nicolau does that way better than Matt Schnell does. He's younger. I think he's faster as well. And I think he's just more technically sound. I mean, Schnell's a brawler. He's going to look to just get in your face, land some of his own. I don't know if he could still take them in return. I mean, he did a decent job of taking them the last fight. I mean, the ref was like 2 to 3 times intervening, saying, protect yourself, defend yourself. And, he did it long enough. Kudos to him to survive and cashes that plus 800 submission ticket. But I just think he's covered everywhere here. I think minus 380 is a very efficient line. I think that you're getting value on Matheus Nicolau betting him at that line, honestly. And, I really like Nicolau in the spot. I just struggle to see Schnell landing another one of those Hail Mary submissions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, Nicolau is such an interesting prospect. At this line, there are quite a few.
See, at 29 years old, you could call him a prospect.
Age is just a number. Age is just a number. No. But yeah, no, look, I mean, first off, that submission was probably one of the highlights of fight night, I would say, just given the scenario, given that he was really down for the count and just found it. Guy Nicolau, he's a really interesting prospect, right? I mean, he went 3-1 in his first stint. Somehow, I guess the UFC cut him for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why. Went out to the regional scene, fought twice, and came back and has looked really well. Mind you, he's not the high volume type of guy. He's extremely methodical with his striking. Sporting a 52% striking accuracy, which is well above the average in the UFC. He mixes in kicks very well. He just makes it count. You know what I'm saying? And, Guy and Schnell, man, for what it's worth, we love the guy, but at the end of the day, he's extremely hittable. He has a pretty weak chin. And it wouldn't surprise me if Nicolau finds a knockout in this spot. We see quite a few juiced up favorites on this card, both on the main event and on the prelims. And I said this last on the spaces, but I think with all the favorites that are over minus 300, I think Nicolau is the safest spot here. He's just a dog, right? I mean, he's number 6 in the division, taking on number 7. Great spot for him to really elevate his career. And, I'd actually really like to see a Nicolau versus Albazi, because I know Albazi has a fight coming up here I think next month. So just another prospect in that division. So give me Nicolau as a great parlay piece this week. I think he gets the job quite seamlessly.
Yeah, not much to add. I think Matt Schnell kind of captured lightning in a bottle in his last fight. He was out on his feet multiple times. He happened to be going against a guy who just punched himself out and didn't really have a ground game. And, Matt Schnell is pretty slick on the ground. But I think Nicolau is just better everywhere. So it's pretty black and white. Still trying to figure out how to bet this fight, but I just don't see Matt Schnell, having a repeat performance here. I think Nicolau is top 5 in the division, absolutely. Again, he's good everywhere, so I just don't see where Schnell can get the upper hand. So, but I'm going to leave it at that. Nothing really to add. You guys kind of said it best. But Nicolau, I think in terms of all the favorites on the card, I would say he's probably. Actually, there's a couple others that I like. I really like Jurgi this week. But I think on the main card for certain, Nicolau is for me probably the strongest side.
Yeah, you hate to use the word safest, but at this spot, it feels like given the odds and the situation, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do think he can finish Schnell, though. I really do. I think Schnell is susceptible to getting both submitted and getting knocked. And Nicolau has been. I think he's. We've been waiting for a true kind of coming out party from him. He's got 4 straight decisions, so you got to think there's a little bit of regression there. And a guy like Schnell is like the perfect dance partner for something like that. He's been finished multiple times, which, again, in this division, you don't really see that often. So he is a killer be killed kind of guy. And I think if Nicolau can, really put him on his ass after the kind of win that Schnell is coming off of, he's gonna turn some heads. So I think, I think I like Nicolau inside the distance. For me to, now that I kind of think about it a little bit more, it's probably for me the side, where I'll look to bet this fight.
Yeah. Look, and Schnell not only has been knocked out cold, but he has been submitted as well. So
exactly.
It's just one of those things. Like, business is business. And although Schnell gave us some great happiness a few months ago, this is Nicolau's time, man. He's the fresher fighter, hungrier fighter, in my opinion, just given his streak and on this stint. So Nicolau, great piece this week for sure.
Yeah, it feels like Schnell's going to be the gift that keeps on giving a fight night, right? 8-1 last fight out, and now we could get Nicolau plus 120 to win inside the distance. I actually like that angle a lot.
Okay.
Let's lock that one in for the King's purse. I think we found our first play of the week. But let's move on to this next fight here, the co-main event. A fight that honestly, I don't know about you guys looking at this line. Fucking head scratcher, right? Dos Anjos minus 600 wide, right? Yeah. And then Barberena come back like plus 430, I believe it is. It's just, man, all things considered, right? First of all, it's great to see RDA back in the octagon, right? His 3rd fight of the year. He's been a guy that's been struggling to get fights for the past few years. Just the OG of OGs in the sport, has fought absolutely everybody. But we have to throw some context in here, right? He beat Renato Moicano, as Moicano said famously in his post-fight speech. He was back in Brazil eating steak and drinking beer. He cut the weight on 2 days' notice and fought a 5-rounder against Dos Anjos. And for what it's worth, Dos Anjos really dominated that one. Next fight out, he comes through. This graphic is a little bit wrong. Dos Anjos is 38 years old, which I think it's a little important because big reason of my next point has to do with his age. The fact that he went out there, he fought a really good fight against Fiziev. He really did. I think he showed that he still has, the skill it takes to compete at 155, right? But got knocked out pretty hard punched in that 5th round. 38 years old. He's coming back just 5 months later, I believe it is, to fight Bryan Barberena up at 170, right? Barberena is a big dude. He's 6 foot. Dos Anjos is 5'8", right? The path to victory for Dos Anjos here is taking him down and keeping him there, which, Barberena has shown that he's susceptible to that a little bit. He's been taken down by way lesser competition than Dos Anjos. But where I struggle here is, Dos Anjos is 38 years old. It's his 3rd fight of the year. He's coming off a knockout loss just over the summer. And he finds himself as a minus 600 favorite against a guy that's on a nice win streak. And not only is it a win streak, but is he going to continue the theme of just beating legends, right? I mean, he beat Matt Brown to start off the year. After that, he goes out there and he beats Robbie Lawler last time we saw him. And now, what better way to finish off the trifecta than to come out here, finish the year off, and beat Rafael dos Anjos in a year where we're seeing all these old favorites of fight fans just crumble, right? It just seems to be the theme of the year. Most recently capped by Frankie Edgar, suffering another knockout loss when we were there at UFC 281 in person. I just struggle to see how Dos Anjos covers this minus 600 line, with a 4-inch height disadvantage, with a pretty large reach disadvantage, with the age disadvantage, and most importantly, just a sheer size disadvantage, right? I think Barberena clearly going to be the bigger guy in there. Fuck, man, it's tough for me to lay that minus 600. Does that mean I'm going to take Barberena here at plus 430, whatever the line may be? Not necessarily, but if I'm going to bet this fight, that's definitely the angle I would most likely lean towards.
Yeah, I mean, RDA is an absolute legend, right? I mean, champion at the lightweight division, contended at welterweight. I mean, look, he's got the second most octagon time in UFC history, only 4 minutes behind Frankie Edgar. It's like 7 hours and 54 minutes. He's got the second most decisions of all time with 12. He's got 20 wins in the UFC, which is 7th of all time. I mean, the man's a legend. Barberena, obviously a brute, man. I mean, he wants to strike. He's got high volume. He's not necessarily the power puncher per se, but he does land at a pretty high clip. And, I will say this, if RDA wants to stand and bank for 15, I'll tell you what, man, Barberena has a legitimate shot at winning this fight by decision. RDA has got to wrestle, right? I mean, Barberena does have a 55% takedown defense. So like it is there for the taking. He just can't defend it. And, if RDA wants to get cute here and just strike with this man, it's not gonna look pretty. But I fully expect RDA to come in with a great game plan as he has for the majority of his career. Should take this to the mat, and I believe RDA by decision is like minus 120, minus 140 range, which for a guy that's minus 440 getting that line with the second most decisions of all time at this point of his career, a guy in Barberena who is pretty damn tough. I tend to think that RDA should cruise to a decision here. Certainly don't expect a finish, although it wouldn't surprise me if RDA does find like an arm triangle as he has that top control. But should be a great fight. I mean, two dinosaurs. Much respect to RDA. He has absolutely brought so much glory to the UFC, and hopefully he doesn't take the Frankie Edgar route and get knocked out time and time again. So would love to see a win and maybe a retirement, but certainly not counting on it. But
And shout out to our guy Jigga fixing that age graphic right there. 38 years old is the correct age for Dos Anjos. Yes,
coming in clutch there. But RDA should cruise to a decision here. But if he wants to stand and bang, man, those minus 540, whatever it is, parlay pieces are going to be sweaty.
Yeah, I had Robbie Lawler against Bryan Barberena, and in that first round, I thought Robbie looked great, but what was evident in the fight that Barberena was putting out there, like this guy has just one gear, and that is just go. Like he is just all gas, no fucking brakes, and I think this line is like I'm not saying that Dos Anjos shouldn't be the rightful favorite. He absolutely should. He's fought the tougher guys. He's beaten the tougher guys. And again, you look at who he's lost to most recently. I mean, you're talking about top level contenders. So for that reason, it's like it's hard for me to get to a place where I say Barberena beats Dos Anjos, but like minus 550 is what I'm seeing on Bet Online right now for Dos Anjos. Like I just don't see it. Like there's absolutely a place where Barberena can take this fight, where he can potentially overwhelm Dos Anjos. He's the bigger guy. And I think Dos Anjos is at a point where he's kind of just fighting for a paycheck. His title aspirations are out the window. There's a reason why he's fighting this at 170. I think he's accepted the fact that he's going to just be putting on entertaining fights for the remainder of his career. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's absolutely no way that I can bet on Dos Anjos at this line. I may have a sprinkle on Barberena. Like I can totally see Barberena just overwhelm Dos Anjos a little bit, and maybe clip him. Granted, Barberena has been susceptible to getting hit to the body. We've seen him crumble from body shots in the past, but it's almost like he's caught in like a guy has just all the momentum in the world right now.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, we saw this with, I think it was Anthony Smith, where he was just kind of beating one legend after the other, and all of a sudden this guy's fighting for the fucking title. So I don't think we'll see Barberena get to that point, but I do think RDA is, I mean, he's been chinny throughout his career, right? We've seen him get finished multiple times, and Barberena, again, being the bigger guy, he's going to be putting out a lot of volume. It can happen. So it's like I can totally see someone laying that plus 420 that I see right now on Barberena. It's like it can happen. I just I don't know. I'm still unsure on how to bet this fight. Like, it's a bit of a head scratcher. But one thing's for sure is like this line is wide. This line is very, very wide.
Very wide, especially all things considered. And another thing to throw out there, both guys are southpaws, and I think I saw something somewhere that Dos Anjos is 4-3 against southpaws in his career. So it's going to be interesting to watch out for that, how the stand-up plays out, how RDA is able to attack takedowns as well, southpaw versus southpaw. Minus 600 is a tough place to get to personally. I really think so. And I would be remiss if I didn't rebut Dan's point about RDA being chinny. Wasn't there that statistic before he fought Fiziev that he hadn't been knocked down in his UFC career? I think the other knockout he suffered was a standing TKO.
I mean, he got KO by Jeremy Stevens. He got
the KO was standing though. I don't think he got knocked down. I think
you might be thinking about the Eddie Alvarez fight.
I think there's a statistic I remember this like vividly going into the Fiziev fight, because it kind of made me think that I should bet RDA in that spot where he went like X amount of rounds without being dropped, and I was like, no fucking way. I was like, he's been knocked out twice, but yeah. It's who knows though, at 38 his chin could be cracked now after that last fight. So
you gotta
every round that he goes. Sorry.
Oh, he's frozen.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you go. It's all Gucci. All Gucci.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, I can totally see a scenario like Barberena just battering him against the fence, like just peppering him with shot after shot, like maybe another TKO. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, I think so too.
If we get that plus 420 line, I think it might be worth the sprinkle. But
just for the meme, right?
Yeah. So look, I mean, like man, if Barberena can literally beat Robbie Lawler, Matt Brown, and RDA in 1 year, like the man deserves a monument.
When I was looking at this fight and I was looking at that, I kept thinking of that meme of like the Grim Reaper knocking on. And I just pictured like Matt Brown, Robbie Lawler, and RDA the next one up. So it's definitely a wide fucking line. I would never in a million years take RDA at the line, even if I was confident, that he had every way to win the fight. It's just, age, size, everything that we like to consider in our process of handicapping goes against him in this spot. So minus 600, like I said, like you guys said, very, very hard to get to in this spot. But you got anything else to add, Kev? Or
I was just gonna say, yeah, you already know Barberena's gonna bring it. You know what I'm saying? Like we've seen it this year. So yeah, I'm definitely staying far away from this money line in any form of a parlay. God bless your heart if you're taking that minus 540. Maybe if it's a 2013 or 2014 RDA, maybe so. Happy so. But yeah, Barberena, man, if he can pull this plus 420 off, that'd be classic.
Barberena is going to show up in his fucking overalls and his lunchbox, just ready to go to work. That's his whole style. You got to love it. But let's move on to this main event. This is an exciting fight. You got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Kevin Big Mouth Holland. The three of us were lucky enough to get the chance to meet Big Mouth Kevin Holland in person at UFC 281. We all spent some time talking to him, grabbed some pictures with him as well. Very humble guy, very down to earth. Personally, I gave him a little bit of trash for retiring and coming out of retirement so quickly. And, he seemed to be in great spirits with where he's at in the company and coming back. So expecting another great performance from Kevin Holland in this spot. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he struggled his last two times out against grapple heavy guys and Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns. It's interesting fight for me, right? Because this line opened up at minus 110. Since then, Holland has steamed up around minus 160. Comeback on Thompson, I think, was around like plus 125-ish. So the line movement, we're definitely late on it if we like Holland because, like I said, we could have gotten it at a coin flip. in terms of like categorically, when I was breaking down this fight, like I think Wonderboy still is like a far superior striker to Kevin Holland. Like I think his skill set, I think it's, you don't even have to question it. Like he's proven himself at every level how good of a striker he is. As far as hand speed goes, I'm struggling determining who has the advantage in that, because we haven't really gotten to see Thompson's hand speed in the last few years because he's fought on, dominant grapplers and he hasn't necessarily spent much time on the feet to see. With that considered, I have to feel at this point in his career that Kevin Holland might have the speed advantage. I do think Holland has a clear power advantage. I do think Holland has a clear grappling advantage too. So I think if Kevin Holland comes into this with a smart game plan, he does to Wonderboy Thompson what Derek Brunson did to him, what all these guys did to him up at middleweight. And it's just a matter of if he's going to implement that or not. I think, he's kind of hinted at himself grappling. He's shown that he's improved offensively grappling. The last time out against Khamzat Chimaev, just not much you can add to that absolute domination by Chimaev. But I feel as if Holland just has to take this one to the mat and kind of make it boring. I think on the feet, Wonderboy could find him. I think Wonderboy could hit him. I think Wonderboy can hurt him, but Wonderboy hasn't put anyone out in a long, long time. It's going to be interesting to see how Wonderboy's chin holds up. I know he did get knocked out by Anthony Pettis on that, like pseudo Superman punch, whatever that was, just caught him on the chin at the end of the round and took him out of there. But otherwise, Thompson's shown to be pretty durable at this point in his career, at this age. I don't know if that's going to hold up anymore, especially against a guy like Kevin Holland, who really could put his fist through your face. It's a really tough fight for me to get to. Gun to my head, I lean Kevin Holland. Another one I feel a little bit crazy. I think this one goes the distance. I really don't see a finishing threat coming from the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson side. And Kevin Holland, I do think he's going to have a hard time finding Wonderboy really landing that clean shot, just because Wonderboy, if this does turn into a stand-up affair, he's going to be able to find his angles to get out of the way. It's a big cage, which I think is a huge factor in this one. His last two fights took place at the Apex, and you could really see it hindered his movement. Wonderboy's a guy that really likes to utilize every inch of the octagon, both offensively and defensively, and I could really see this one just turning into a 25-minute affair, because even if Holland decides to grapple Wonderboy, it's going to be tough to find the submission. I mean, Gilbert Burns couldn't find it, although he didn't necessarily look for it. Bilal Muhammad at times tried looking for it, went for ground and pounds as well. He didn't get it either. So, plus money on this one to go the distance, I think that's worth a stab. I think I saw it at like plus 175-ish, plus 180. I just really struggle seeing a finish come from either side on this one.
Yeah, I think I disagree. I like Wonderboy here. I just don't see how Holland is going to be able to close the distance effectively. I mean, I don't think his wrestling is up to par with like a Bilal Muhammad or a Gilbert Burns. So I just don't see how he'll be. His defensive wrestling has gotten better, but I mean, he's not a takedown guy, right? He kind of tries to fight a little bit like Wonderboy in the sense that just using his length to his advantage and tries to land at distance. But I mean, Stephen Thompson is the fucking master at distance management. You know what I mean? Like where we've seen him get clipped have been against guys that bull rush him and throw like looping overhands, right? Like a Tyron Woodley, right? That's how he was able to drop Wonderboy. Pettis cracked him with a Superman punch, lunging in. When he was losing like the majority of that. Like Holland doesn't really do that type of stuff, right? He a little bit more methodical, tries to be a little bit more like a sniper. And I just think that if you play that game with Wonderboy, you're playing right into his strength. And so I think like at plus money here, I mean, I gotta go with Thompson. I mean, I just don't see it. Like again, I'm a fan of Holland. I think he's got a great skill set. He's a fun guy to watch. I actually told him that, and I was happy that he came out of retirement. But he said it himself. Like he's a company man. Like he'll take a fight if it means getting a good paycheck. That's why he fought Khamzat. Like he was the only one that can decide to step up. Fight at 180 when he was supposed to fight at 170. Got the paycheck, and I mean, I was seeing in his interview just before, like. When he was talking about how like he didn't have to do that, but he's a company guy, and company guys do that type of shit, and he's always referred to himself as kind of like a Cowboy Cerrone type approach to fighting. Well, Cowboy lost a lot of fights. He took a lot of fights that he probably shouldn't have taken. I don't think Holland is going to be winning a title. He's fun to watch, but I think Thompson is due for a win here. They've put him up against some tough guys in his last fights. Matchups that are just bad for him. You know what I mean? Like this is a good matchup for Wonderboy. I do think this goes the distance. I do like a 5-round decision here by Thompson. And with that being said, I mean I do think that Thompson can win fights like this, but you put him up against a wrestler with high volume. And that's like his kryptonite. Like he's past the point where I think he can hang with those killers. So but he can win a striking match. Like that'll still be there. I just, again, unless Kevin Holland comes out and just surprises the fuck out of me, like I don't think he's gonna come out and wrestle Wonderboy. I don't see it. So
he's gonna have to if he wants to win, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't think that he has the he doesn't have the body type to grapple fuck Thompson. I'm sorry, like Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, these are like stocky, strong guys, that move well on the feet, and when they enter, they come in hard. And I think like I can't even remember when I've seen Holland like come in like shoot hard for a double. Like, can you?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's against like the most stylistic comparison to Thompson. It's Charlie Ontiveros. I don't know if you watched that fight, but exactly. No, I know it's funny, but I'm just referencing the exact.
Okay, no, I remember that fight. He got in like some weird like
style as Wonderboy, like hands low, throwing those weird axe kicks, and just that was the only time like Holland's ever really shown his offensive wrestling, and it's just funny that it came against the same sort of opponent. So that's the only reason why I bring up that like I think he will grapple, because it's going to take like one axe kick until he's like, oh shit, I should probably take this guy down.
But it wasn't a double leg he got him with. He had him in like some weird like standing arm triangle and like just kind of like tried to hip toss him. Like you're not going to land that shit on Wonderboy, man. Like,
I think what happened, I think he landed a double leg off the rip, and then he like did a body lock takedown. I think Ontiveros separated his shoulder as he hit the mat.
Yeah, he broke his collarbone.
Like,
I remember that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I to compare Charlie Ontiveros and
no, I'm not comparing. Clearly, I'm not. You asked for an example. I gave you an example.
No, yeah, fair. I'm Thompson here. I think at plus money, it's worth a shot. I do like Thompson by decision as well.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Wonderboy's he's a legend for what it's worth, man. I mean, he went on a 7-fight win streak in the UFC. Had a draw with Tyron Woodley, had the rematch and lost. And at this point in his career, man, 39 years old, he's got his own gym now. He's teaching. Like, fighters at a 9-year age disadvantage are losing, 70% of the time. So it's like guy in Holland with 6 inches in reach, so unorthodox, such a different type of striker that. Holland is just the type of striker that it's just incredibly unique. There's no duplicate of it, just the different angles that he's able to connect on. He's a different beast at welterweight, man. I mean, the 81-inch reach is truly spectacular for this division. I believe it's the lengthiest reach in the welterweight with Holland there. So, it's just one of those things that with the age gap, I tend to think that Holland is the side here. Mind you, Wonderboy has had some incredible moments in the UFC, right? I mean, knocked out Robert Whittaker. He beat Masvidal. He beat Rory McDonald. I mean, he's got some incredible wins. But 0-2, last 2-4 in his last 6. At 39 years old, I tend to think that Holland is going to come in here with a methodical game plan, and that's not going to be kickboxing for 25 minutes. Like, you got to imagine that the man did his homework. Like, he knows what Wonderboy brings to the table. And if he wants to stand for 25, man, I mean, Thompson, I think, will outpoint. I think that he will land the higher volume more accurately. But if Holland is able to find that clinch there, I mean, the guy's evolving. So you gotta think that he's incorporating some form of grappling into his game. So I think that we're going to see a different version of Kevin Holland here on Saturday night, and we'll cruise to a decision.
Yeah, I saw Dan's little smirk come up. Whenever you break down a Wonderboy fight and you're talking about his opponent being the one with the weird angles and the unique striking, it's gonna bring a smirk on Dan's face, I think.
I mean, listen, what are we talking about here, right? It's you're talking about a fucking one of the craftiest strikers in UFC history. I mean, Holland is a great striker, but like to say that he's the one who's going to have all the crazy angles, like, come on.
I mean, it's a two-way street. So
is it?
Look, how do you see?
Yeah.
How do you see? I know Dan mentioned how he sees Wonderboy winning the fight. How would you envision Kevin Holland wins the fight? Do you think it comes knockout, submission, decision?
It would have to be a finish. Like, there's no way he's outpointing Wonderboy for 5 rounds.
Unless he's going grapple heavy for like the first time ever.
Yeah. Listen, if like I said, he can maybe surprise us, but like to outpoint Wonderboy for 5 rounds on the feet, like, come on.
No, but Kev, what do you think? I'm asking you because that you lean the Holland side.
How do I think that he's going to find the job and get the job done?
Yeah, like what is your path to victory for Kevin Holland?
Yeah, no, I think that he's going to make it tricky for Thompson. Like, and it's not just going to be, a standing affair. I think that he is going to find a different technique in this fight. Obviously it's all speculation, but again, I just believe in Holland at welterweight. I think that he's an incredible prospect for this division. I don't think he'll ever be a champion, but I could see him fighting for a championship one day. And, I think he knows that. And at the end of the day, he can't reach that pinnacle if he just wants to stand and strike, and again, a guy in Thompson, like I fully expect Holland to come in here with a different game plan, even though he got absolutely dominated by Chimaev and, got submitted early. I think that Holland gave Chimaev, for what it's worth, a slight fight. Like, you saw Chimaev really putting a lot of energy into that first takedown, and it took him probably a little bit longer than people expected to take him down. So obviously, that's on the defensive side, but yeah, man. And look, Holland does have 7 submissions on his record. So it's like, if he can get him down, it's not like Wonderboy is bona fide, in that department. At the end of the day, Wonderboy is a one-dimensional fighter, just how it is. Similar to what's his face, the Boston Bomber, Calvin Kattar. It's a similar style. It's not the kickboxing style; it's a boxing style. But at the end of the day, it's a one-dimensional style. He doesn't have the ground game to make an impact in that field. So yeah, I like Holland to land a takedown or 2 in this fight, and win a 48-47 decision.
And for what it's worth, Holland is still undefeated at welterweight. The fight against Hamzat was a catch weight of 178, I think it was. So I think, you kind of have to take that into consideration a little bit too, because cutting down to 170, it does give him that huge advantage that he was finding in his first 2 fights, both against Cowboy Oliveira and then Tim Means the next time out. So I think it is worth noting that last fight did take place about 10 pounds above the welterweight limit. It's definitely gonna be a good fight. Like I said, I'm not sold on who's gonna win this one. I do definitely lean this one to go over. I think that there's a scenario here where you could ladder some overs. The over 2.5 is minus 145. The over 3.5 is plus 105. Over 4.5 is plus 140. You could, I see a scenario where you could take all of those and you could cash them all. And even if it ends in like late round 4 or something, you're still hitting at least 2 of them.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like I feel as though Thompson's path here is a decision. Like I can't imagine a world where he finishes Holland.
Well, yeah, he hasn't gotten a finish in how long now, right? It's been at least since 2016.
Yeah, 2016. And, like Holland, man, he just has such a different build to him. And I don't think Wonderboy has ever faced like this type of a lengthy striker, just looking at his record here. Jeff Neal, like it's a different type of striker. You know what I'm saying? Vicente Luque, a different type of striker, but that length, I think, will cause issues for Thompson. Again, he's got his own gym, like he's teaching. Like I don't know, man. Like it's just a huge hunger factor for me, man. It's like you've got a guy in Holland who clearly has aspirations to be a champion. You have a guy in Thompson who failed to be a champion in the UFC. And like what you know what I mean? Like it's a huge psychological thing for me, and I think Holland is the side here 100%. I think the line, I actually like the line at like more like a minus 200. Honestly, I think that there is a little bit of value on the Holland side, even though it's already steamed from minus 110 to minus 160.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one, man. I cannot wait to break down these prelims with you guys on Thursday evening. And man, always a pleasure breaking these fights with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone tuning in tomorrow night, Thursday night, we will be hosting our Twitter spaces at 9 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you hop in there. There will be no spaces on Saturday, but make sure you go to the Knights of Degen Discord in the Fight Night channel. Saturday, we'll be in there chopping it up, posting live bets. And as always, the KP slate will be posted in the Knights of Degen Discord. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Guys, it was a pleasure getting back at it 2 weeks later. Let's cash in this week and make up for some lost bets the past few weeks.
We'll get it back.